All right, you guys. I feel like today is probably a very great day to discuss homosexuality. Okay, so I grew
Okay.
up in the 90s and we were taught in school that some people are born gay. The older that I get and I speak to people who struggle with homosexuality or live out homosexual lives, and actually the majority of them don't think they were born gay. They typically will correlate their homosexuality to some event that's happened in their past. Well, I'm want to discuss this theme today because virtually everything that I'm reading right now, whether it's Hollywood Babylon or getting into Sigmund Freud and the history of Jewish mysticism, there is some element of homosexuality. Is this a part of an occultic practice? Has homosexuality been pushed upon our society because it is disordering? Are we even allowed to say that on YouTube? Anyways, here to join me, Milo Yiannopoulos. Let me start from the beginning here.
I want to say I've never struggled with homosexuality. I was brilliant at it from day one. But it did occur to me 5 years ago that hell was real and I don't want to go.
So you say you're a reformed or a recovered homosexual.
I say ex-gay because it sounds hilarious, but the truth is,
Ex-gay does sound good.
it's good, isn't it? But the truth is, as far as I've got so far is celibacy, and the good thing about the male libido is the less you have, less you want. So I never thought that I would be happy, kind of not really having sexual activity per se, but it's fine. And now I'm into the messy, difficult, and terrifying business of casting my eye over the female population. It's probably more terrifying for them than it is for me. Um, uh, and figuring out if there's anybody there who could be quiet for long enough to be my wife. I'm just kidding, of course, but it has nagged at me and irritated me since I came back to my faith, the Catholic faith, that I wasn't able to participate in that last Holy Sacrament. I was confirmed very late in life, actually, and it's a blessing to be able to not just remember it, but to have had a very fancy affair. I had the full Latin, Institute of Christ the King. They do a conditional baptism. You get exorcised 3 times on the way into the church. You have to get on
Mm.
your knees and you go in, you go in, you go in. So converts normally have this, but if you have a conditional baptism, make you do this as an adult. You have to read the Our Father and a few other things in Latin, and then confirmation is, as you know, over very quickly. But um, it was beautiful, and it was lovely to be able to have that as an adult, and it was a very important part of my return to as close to faithful Catholic life as I can get. I think it's probably safe to say. Um, but it was bugging me that I wasn't able to participate in something that everybody should. And there's something very magical and very special about not just marriage, but about children, because it is the time before you die, before you get to heaven, where you get to do something with our Lord. It's called co-procreation. Two people make the baby biologically, but our Lord puts a soul in there. And so co-procreation with God is, you haven't just made love with your husband and you haven't, or your wife, you haven't just, you haven't just created a baby, but you have participated in creation with God. Like, like that's huge. And it's something that men can do even if they can't bear children. They still get to do that. And I don't know. I just the truth is, it's not a very good answer, but it sort of crept up on me. The truth is, one day I woke up and I remember the short chain of thought I had, and it's what I said a moment ago. Hell is real, and I don't want to go.
Just like that.
Yeah.
It's very interesting because, like I said, I grew up and you learn in school, if you go to the public school system, that some people are gay, some people are straight, and we need to normalize homosexuality. That's why we have terms like homophobic, which I don't know what that means. I guess it means you're scared of gay
Well, if you're
people
if you're a
running down the
baby, you
street.
should be afraid of getting trafficked to a homosexual couple. Homophobia is pretty rational if you're a vulnerable young foster kid or something.
Well,
Um,
but I think about this now and having read, and I asked you to read this book ahead of this discussion, but having read
mm,
Hollywood Babylon and getting into Sigmund Freud and the sort of mystical tradition, it's really interesting because we, of course, have no memory of what happened on this earth before we were here. And I think I sort of assumed, obviously very wrongly, that there was always this kind of current of homosexuality in American culture. but it actually happened quite quickly. And
Right.
beyond quite quickly, it also happened quite intentionally when you
Yes.
take a look
Yes, it
at
did.
the establishment
Yes, it did.
of Hollywood and them thinking through how to infect the Christian
Yes.
culture in
Yes.
America.
And that had happened a few different times in different ways elsewhere in the history of Western civilization. But really prior to the Middle Ages, that homosexuality is sort of conceived of completely differently in the same way that race is. Um, uh, people living in 1100 would just have no idea what we were talking about. We were talking about somebody being white or not white
Mm.
in the American way. Um, but the most recent explosion of this, funnily enough, happened in a way. It was kind of a test run for what the media later did with Trump. The first, I think, a full media assault, like what they did to Trump, like what they did on January 6th, was about conversion therapy in the 80s. And at that time, after maybe half a century of this stuff, digging in after the 1910s, 20s, and 30s in Hollywood, half a century has passed, and people still think homosexuals are dirty and sleazy, and it's a moral choice, and this a moral lifestyle, and we can't get over this hurdle. So what the campaigners came up with was, well, if it's hang on a second, if it's like being black or if it's like being a woman, then if somebody doesn't like it, they're a bigot. That works. So the Born This Way mythology was created to meet ideological objectives out of whole cloth, and it has never been even remotely demonstrated by science. The closest that anybody will truthfully get is say there appear to be some people who have some sort of predispositions, maybe, but it is vastly more to do with nurture than it is to do with nature. And in any case, even if you are one of those people that just pops out, in sequins, singing Mariah Carey, um, it is possible to overcome what are disordered urges. They call it unwanted same-sex attraction. I think it's the PC term that YouTubers are right with. It is possible to, uh, even though you may be suffering with what is a terrible curse, not do it.
You know
Um,
what's interesting, because I've had to reconsider that my childhood programming on this, but I love that you call it the born this way mythology. That's a great way of saying it, because
mhm.
that's what it was. You're born this way.
It's
And
worse than
people
mythology, actually. It's
that
propaganda. It's political
it
propaganda.
is political propaganda, and I think that the best example of that currently, because we're living through that, is this insistence that people are born trans, and you can see how they infect that propaganda, how it starts.
You know, you know.
And thinking about Hollywood, how it starts with the television screens, and I Am Jazz was sort of the first time that they did this TLC show. I don't know if you're familiar with this, and it
Yeah, yeah,
was,
I know, I know.
and they said actually jazz is trans, and it became this cultural phenomenon, got so much coverage, and nobody tells you the end point and the struggles that jazz is facing today.
Right.
And they were able to get all of these kids. I grew up, nobody was trans, and now all of a sudden you have all of these parents who are convinced
And
that their children are born
you said it. You
something
said it
other.
exactly right. People are always amazed at the horrors that parents can do to their own children, but they shouldn't be, because people do all kinds of terrible things to their kids. Whether it's everyday neglect or it's something more serious and more dramatic. The trans thing fixed a really big problem for the parents of gay kids or kids who show signs of those sorts of behaviors early on, which lots do because the damage happens early. Fixed a big problem, which is, what did I do wrong? Because if you don't have a gay child that you messed up, but instead have a trans child who has a problem, who has a disease, who has a syndrome, who has something on them, then you're off the hook.
Hmm.
You're not bad parents. In fact, you're victims because your kid has got this thing that nobody would ever want for their own child, and so you become brave, and you become a hero, and your child becomes the crucible in which your social anxieties about having messed up as a parent and made your kid gay, which is what you did, um, are resolved and sanctified because, in fact, all of these kids who are seized and mutilated, if they were left alone, would be what we would call, like gay men. And if um, without the interference, without the injection into the process of these crazed trans campaigners, they would have a hope of a way out. But once you've started chopping things off, you create so many psychological and body image problems that you're no longer just dealing with the fact that you had an overbearing mother, an absent father, and you didn't form uh, um, sustainable platonic relationships with men as a young boy, and something went wrong in your head, or that you got raped, and it happened because it could happen for any mixture or all of those reasons. I had a bit of all of them. Uh, Once you start chopping part of that person off, you cut them off from salvation. You cut them off from redemption. You cut them off from hope, because if you can stop doing that stuff, at least you're still you, and you have potential and possibility, and you could do and be anything as long as you're still, like, in possession of your health, your faculties, your whatever. But once you start mutilating somebody because parents find it easier to believe their kids have a disease, which is not their fault, than they messed up as parents and that they're gay. um, Even if you were able to somehow switch the trajectory of your desire from one sex to another, which does happen. It's not, not everybody who goes into conversion therapy wins. It's, best case scenario, you got like a 1 in 5 chance. It's not good odds. Better than cancer, but it's not great. Um, if you start cutting things off immediately, there's nowhere to come home to. And the problem that gay kids have is that they start early on being different people in front of different audiences. So they know that, for instance, they can't be their sassy selves in front of their grandparents, let's say, because
Mhm.
they're whatever. And this eventually, unchecked, becomes a kind of fractured personality, which is the bedrock reason why gay people are always so dishonest and always up to stuff, because they have these competing identities that are not reconciled, and they are playing characters in front of different people who become almost like fully fledged people in their own right. And it is a kind of, I mean, it's layperson schizophrenia. It's not schizophrenia, but it becomes disorientating, and it becomes debilitating. And what you're able to do, if you have different people you can lean into and lean out of, like an actor, but in real life, you're able to do things to those characters because they're not you, and you might not know really where the you is. But the person, the character that is the sexual person, you can begin to degrade them. You can begin to humiliate them. You can get off on them suffering, even if it's you, because it's role play, and because everything is in your life, because you've you're now simply replacing one facade with another constantly everywhere you go. And so, because your personality is kind of broken into bits, you can at any point see any of it as not being really you, and you can do awful things to it.
It's so funny that you say that because somebody that I know who used to live a homosexual lifestyle and doesn't anymore, I was opening up to him about this gay guy that we had hired a while ago who very quickly was lying to us and stealing from us. And he was fantastic at his job. We were so good to him.
It's
And
the other
the
one.
question that he asked me, he said, was there something about it? He said a lot of gay men are sociopaths because they have to lie so much about who they are and what they're doing, like, and it shapes their brain early on, and then later on in life it becomes very easy when you're lying, you don't even feel like you're lying because you've nurtured this ability to be dishonest for so long.
I wouldn't say that it because they have to lie about who they are, because there's a little there's something hidden in there. There's a little something embedded in there that suggests that maybe it's homophobia that makes them damaged or miserable, and that's not what's going on. Um, what they're doing, what people with these disordered desires are doing, knowing that it is wrong and that it's not normal. You know that you're supposed to be into girls. I had relationships with girls. I just wasn't really feeling it. Um, but you feel drawn to this other thing, and you know that it's wrong, and it's as much wanting to distance yourself from the moral responsibility and culpability of doing it as it is presenting different faces as well. Um, that become the reason why gays have this sort of fractured personality, but it's not sociopathy. They feel things intensely. And that hysteria is not the shallow hysteria of a sociopathic mom who's going to drown her kid. It's different. They're in pain. They're hurting. And when they cry, it's real. But they're bouncing between different personalities and different identities. And your man there, um, it was like, from his perspective, it's like somebody else was doing that. You know,
Yeah.
um, and he is responsible, and he did do it, and he must have the consequences because it will help him to reintegrate and they now call conversion therapy reintegrative therapy for reasons that you will immediately understand having listened to me talk. Um, uh, they need that impetus, so they need to get caught, you know.
Mm.
But they are in pain acting out, and very often you find with gays, they will do this stuff almost to get caught because they want somebody to notice that everything's not all right. And when the alphabetized CD collection, perfect employee, who's kind of like, yes, I'll take care of that for you, needs you to know that they're in pain, they'll do something like steal, or they'll do something like uh, say or do something despicable, whatever. They're acting out because they want to be noticed. It's a cry for help.
So it's interesting now when I consider it now that I was baptized Catholic and re-examining why it is that we learned that it is this immutable characteristic. It's like being black, it's like being a woman. This person is just gay, and how it doesn't allow people to get better. It would be absurd. Giving a totally different example. If someone is an alcoholic, if we said, "Oh, you were that's who you always were. Deep down you were always an alcoholic, so just keep drinking, it's
You
totally fine."
have
And yes, if you
you've
go to
immediately got
rehab,
it.
you
You've
don't
got
have
it.
a 100% chance of getting sober. If you are taking meth, you don't have a 100% chance of getting sober. But knowing and saying to a society that this is an unhealth something that you are doing,
It
that
forecloses, exactly. You have immediately intuited exactly the key thing about this.
yeah,
You got it.
they don't want
You got
people.
it right away.
Mm,
If you tell somebody that that's what they are, more even than who they are,
mm.
you're robbing them of the ability to make
Yeah,
changes.
like you're an
And
alcoholic because it's totally a genetic trait, and your dad
right,
was an alcoholic, and now you're an
right.
alcoholic, and it's not your
Right, and there's
fault.
nothing you can do about it. I mean, in a way, you should probably just drink,
Yeah, right.
and we'll deal with the consequences later.
Hmm.
Robbing that person maybe of the ability to get sober and to have a family, to stop beating their wife or to get their kids back or something.
Well, that's the main thing. That's why I think it's such an important discussion to
It's funny, it's because
reopen.
you got kids, you immediately understood.
Mhm.
You immediately understood what the problem was. Nobody
Right.
gets it. When I say, like, "What's the problem with telling somebody that it's what they're," I'm like, "I don't know." That you immediately got it because you have children now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what it is. It all of the pathways to not, I mean, you said pathways of salvation. I used that word metaphorically earlier, but I mean it literally too. Um, it's barring your way to heaven,
Right.
and that's what's so wicked about it.
Right. And so you see people who have normalized this, and now you have homosexual families, which, in my opinion, that is oxymoronic in general,
Well,
because you're depriving children.
it's a mockery.
Well, what's also interesting about it, though, is like, a lot of people get into these situations, and that's why it's been fascinating for me to know people who identify as homosexual, and all of them, the one thing that is agreed upon them is that they actually don't think they were born this way. One of them has mommy issues, says, "Okay, my mother was bipolar, and she drove both me and my brother to never want to be around women again, and now we're both choosing to be gay." Another person
Overbearing
said, "I
moms,
had
isn't it?
daddy issues. My
Yeah.
daddy walked out. I wasn't around him, and then I looked. I sought to have that relationship with men when I got older." You could say this even for women who can understand this in another context. A lot of the women who you will see sleep with tons of guys, it's because their dads weren't around. So they have daddy issues. They're pursuing that paternity in a really unhealthy way.
Right.
And so for you, which was it?
Well, I always knew that it was sick and wrong, to for two men to raise a baby, and I never wanted to have any part of that. And I feel some responsibility for um, elevating out what you might call out and proud homosexuality into an acceptable position in right wing politics in America. I feel a lot of I feel a lot of things about that, about my personal responsibility for that. I regret it very deeply, because although I thought at the time I was being sufficiently tongue in cheek and subtle that people would get the nuances to it, they did not, and you just ended up with Lady Margot. And although I said in every speech I ever gave, if I had a button I could push to make me straight, I would. That too, of course, got lost. And so there was a moment when it looked like it might be a good idea if people who had this terrible affliction at least lived as close to wholesome lives as possible. I mean, it sounds sensible, right? So we go from being the taboo breaking, drug taking, promiscuous subculture to people who are living about as good as you can, despite the fact that your life revolves around a dysfunction or around a horror like that. At least you don't need to like throw the rest of your life away. You could at least be healthy. You could at least, whatever. And it seemed for a while as though that was good. Homosexuals began to vote right wing. They still do. And so we thought for a while this is going all right. We've got all the white gays voting for the Conservatives or the Republican Party, and they're getting into all kinds of rows with their intersectional whatever. This is good. This is good because they're the ones we want anyway. They're the white gays are the good ones out of the LGBT circus, and they ended up voting on the basis of taxes instead of social issues. All good things, but what I didn't foresee, which I suppose I should have, is that um, a 3/5 of a parody is not enough. And when you have this mockery of the Holy Sacrament, which is ultimately what it is, two men living together and uh, committing a sin that, as we know, is one of the sins that cries out to heaven for vengeance. It is one of the things that uh, um, it's Saint Catherine of Siena. I think um, she says that the demons that cause homosexual acts, once they've prompted that in men, don't stick around to watch because it's too disgusting. Because they used to be angels, and it's in their angelic rational nature. They can't see something so gross, so they dip. They don't stick around to see the sin that they prompted. This is the level of seriousness with which the church takes it, faith takes it. So it was probably foreseeable that a simulacrum of married life was going to lead to something awful, and it did. It has led to the widespread abuse of not just children but babies. We see stories now of babies being sexually violated by gay men. I mean, the couple who Ruth Bader Ginsburg married got busted for child pornography, I think, sometime later. Uh, all of the
Even speaking of, sorry to cut you off,
yeah.
but speaking of the mythology, even the Matt Laramie project, insane. I did not learn this. My brain basically broke because it was a part of the propaganda. Sorry, Matthew Shepard, the Laramie Project. Why it was in Wyoming, I believe, and they kind of came out with this mythology saying Matthew Shepard was murdered because he was gay and he was tied to a fence. And this became a part of my high school indoctrination about why it was so important to let people just be gay.
Right.
Because look what happened to Matthew Shepard.
And that was, of course, a
Turns out
manufacture. It was a
it was a
manufacture.
total manufactured thing. Actually, he was a drug-addled, drug-addicted.
Yep.
The person who killed him was somebody that he knew and had a homosexual relationship with, and they ran with this in order to get laws passed.
I don't know if
It
there's
was
ever
built
been
upon a myth.
has there ever been a hate crime? I don't know if there's ever been a hate crime. I mean, definitely, 300 years ago, terrible. There were atrocities happening across racial lines for because there was an understanding that people weren't people. But has there ever really been a hate crime?
When you say hate crime, it's so stupid. I'm like, has
No,
anybody ever committed a crime against someone that they love? Like, what do we mean when we
well,
even
I mean,
say hate crime? Like,
well, I'm saying,
for your attributes, like
yeah,
just because you're white,
has
I'm going to kill you.
has somebody pursued a homosexual across a field, tied him up, and beaten him? No, come on.
But they wanted us to believe that, and they taught us this in school. And there are still people I know that are watching right now that do not realize that the entire movie,
the
the
Matthew Shepard thing is
play, the Matthew
all
Shepard
nonsense.
thing is all one big myth.
But look at the way that progressives will rewrite their own founding mythology to suit the mores of the day. You think they're not worried about lying to you? It's now accepted wisdom among the wokest of the gay community that it was trans people who won gay rights at Stonewall, who marched. It wasn't. There were no real trannies there. It was white gays. The white gays do all the interesting stuff. They're all the fashion designers. Blah blah blah. But they've because white gays have fallen out of fashion with the intersectional crowd. Now they've just sort of completely rewritten who it was that participated in this civil rights event in history. They completely rewrite their own mythology with no compunction whatsoever, and they have no hesitation in lying to us about things that happened. And I think we're now seeing. We did a show not long ago about one particular country that is guilty of just the most extraordinary machine gun of psyops and lies and misrepresentations, just hoping that enough of it sticks. It has become now the norm. Our society is it functions not on the truth, but primarily on lies. I mean, most of the things that are said in American public life, on television, in newspapers, in the academy, are not true.
Mm.
And this is very dangerous because people with conditions or with disorders where they're trying to figure out what's real, they have no hope in a society like this because it is now. I think we live in America in a state now of epistemological crisis, where it is no longer possible for a regular person with access to regular people things to even figure out how they would find out if something that they heard on TV was true. So if a politician tells you, no, this bill is bad because it's going to increase the deficit to a point where the country will not recover financially, and you're like, well, I don't think money's real, but can't they just? Even if you took all the premises as, there's no way to even find out. There's no way for somebody to go and find out, like, is that true? Who is telling me the truth out of the Republicans and the Democrats, or out of the neocons and the MAGA people? Who is telling me the truth about this? What should be a black and white math problem? There's nobody to know, and so we're hopeless on things like sexuality that are so that are not concrete, that are not tangible.
All right, you guys, I've been speaking a lot about Riverbend Ranch because I absolutely love their steaks. Black Angus beef is famous for its great flavor, but Riverbend Ranch has taken Black Angus beef to a whole new level. Over the last 35 years, Riverbend Ranch has been creating an elite Angus herd by using ultrasound to select genetically superior cattle with a focus on flavor and tenderness. Each year, Riverbend Ranch provides about 850 elite Black Angus bulls containing these special genetics to over 260 Western U.S. ranches. Those partnership ranches receive a substantial premium from Riverbend Ranch for raising those calves without the use of growth hormones and without antibiotics. And every fall, the calves containing these elite genetics return to Riverbend Ranch to spend the following summer in lush mountain pastures. When you purchase from Riverbend Ranch, you are not only supporting the 64 cowboys and their families who work on the ranch, but you're also supporting over 260 other U.S. ranches and the hundreds of American families who work on those ranches. It's born in the USA, it's raised in the USA, and it's processed here in the USA. Their meat is aged to perfection for 21 days, and it's shipped directly from their ranch to your home. This is not your average Black Angus beef. This is more flavorful and more tender than even the best Angus beef that I have ever tasted. I truly mean that. Right now, when you head over to riverbendranch.com and use promo code Candace at checkout, you will get $20 off your first order. Trust me, you're going to be so impressed. Visit riverbendranch.com and use promo code Candace at checkout. Also want to tell you guys about Masa Chips, because did you know that all chips and fries used to be cooked in tallow up until the 1990s when big corporations switched to cheap processed seed oils? Today, seed oils make up 20% of the average American's daily calories, and recent studies have linked seed oils to metabolic health issues and inflammation in the body. Masa decided that they were going to do something about that. They created a tasty and delicious tortilla chip with just 3 ingredients: organic corn, sea salt, and 100% grass-fed beef tallow. These chips don't only avoid all the bad stuff, they also taste incredible. My team and I cannot get enough of their chips. They have spicy habanero chips, and they are hands down the best chips that I've ever had. A close second is their original blue chips. Masa is crunchier, it's tastier, it's sturdier than other chips. With Masa, you feel satisfied, light, and energetic. There'll be no crash, no bloat, or that gross, sluggish feeling afterwards. The beef tallow makes the chips much more satiating, so you won't find yourself uncontrollably binging, and you won't still feel hungry afterward. If you don't feel like ordering online, starting in October, Masa will be available nationwide at your local Sprouts supermarket. Stop by and pick up a bag before they're all gone. If you're ready to give Masa a try, go to masachips.com/Candace, and don't forget to use code Candace at checkout, and you'll get 25% off your first order. That's Masa Chips, MASA chips.com/Candace, code Candace for 25% off your first order. No, it's really interesting because even if you examine, there are all of these founding myths. Like for BLM, they needed to have that George Floyd thing to really set fire to everything. It's a look, or
Mhm.
actually before the George Floyd thing, what happened in, who was it? Michael, what was the person down in Florida? I can't think of his name. It was the founding
Trayvon
BLM.
Martin
Trayvon Martin
with the
was
Skittles.
with the Skittles. There's all of these founding myths, and what they do is they get the media to spread it like fire. And before people even know what the truth is, everybody is emotionally invested in the lies, and that's how they do it. They have to tell you a story that's borderline medieval. It's like he was chained. He was chained to a fence just for being gay. George Floyd, he did nothing
And with
wrong.
hatred,
They
like
just saw a black guy and they said, "Let's choke him out for 9 minutes and hope that he dies." And nobody just goes for a moment, wait a second.
Mhm.
I've lived in America a very long time.
Never
I've
heard it.
never seen or heard this thing happen, but the media, they are so good at getting
Well,
psychologically convincing people
I don't
that
know.
no, this is
I don't know if it's
exactly
the
how it
media. My
happens.
British is going to come out now, but I think this is how this country was founded, on a trumped up Reddit libertarian hissy fit that was not really all it was cracked up to be, but was the basis for a destructive and a self harm story. You know, a founding mythology of a country that ripped out the natural system of government that is supposed to obtain over man on earth, and pulled God out of the system too. Is this my British coming out? I know a little
No,
bit,
it's I actually I'm
but
gonna
there is something a little similar about the way this country was founded, to what you're talking about, which might suggest why this country is so vulnerable and so is so susceptible to precisely this kind of psychological and political warfare, because it is how the nation knows itself. How it was born was in a fit of injustice
Mm.
that was corrected by a few brave men taking a stand. That's the whole story of America.
Okay, so I'm interested now because this is going to bring us right into the occult and what they actually believe in. Because you're right, the founding of America is an absolute myth.
Mhm.
I'm actually
And
reading a
supported
book,
by the French.
but hold on. What is the book that I'm reading? The Secret Founding of America. I'm reading a book, and it's basically just blowing my mind, and it's telling me that everything you think you know is completely false. But when I was in study with some priests, they sort of pish poshed me. You know, I was in England studying with some priests, and they were just sort of like, everything that you Americans think you know is so foolish. Like, America was obviously founded by Freemasons, and now I'm really understanding. Like, yes, you had these Freemason lodges that came over. You know, the Scottish Rite, B'nai B'rith, and they were the reason behind the Civil War. They were the
Mhm.
reason, but they were literally fighting for
And
control of America. And the way that they do this is very similar to what we're seeing today. There's this kind of mainstreamed lie. I mean, let's get the if you ask Americans, oh, it was just the tea tax was too high. And this is what we did. We started throwing it out in the harbor and we said, we're ready to go to war. Now that I say it, it sounds so stupid that
sounds kinda
it's
dumb, don't
kind
it?
of
Sounds kinda
really
dumb.
basic
Like, I
and
know it was a
dumb.
couple 100 years ago, but
Yeah.
people were people.
What? How much does this tea cost? Oh no, Paul Revere. The British are coming. It's actually
Just
some.
stop,
It's
just stop.
so
And it's
childish.
gay. It's gay. It's gay. It's gay.
Yeah.
It's
When we
implausible. It is fake
it's
and
so
gay.
please, God, like, you literally now that I'm getting
It's
into the
Take it.
Freemasonry.
Is it any wonder that a country founded on a fake and gay mythology would have as its primary export, just a couple of 100 years later, sodomy as a condition of foreign aid?
No.
Is it so surprising? No, it's not.
It's
Not to
not.
me.
No, it's not. But getting into the homosexuality and looking into B'nai B'rith, this was actually one of the Masonic lodges that Sigmund Freud was a part of, and that's why it made me think about this because they were
Mhm.
definitely very involved in what was happening in the South. They're very involved in what's happening today. B'nai B'rith then became the ADL that we had
Right.
today.
Right.
What do they
Right.
do? They mainstream lies, right?
And
They call
yes,
themselves
and they
exactly
and
they call themselves anti-defamation, but what are they doing?
they
They're
defame
actually
people.
defaming people.
And
They
and
accuse
which is a
people.
satanic inversion of the language, precisely as is used in their warfare.
Yes.
They tell you who they are in the name.
Exactly. And so they're constantly accusing people of exactly what it is that they are.
Yes.
So they actually
Yes.
in their core, by the way, they hate Christians, okay? They hate I would argue that they hate the nuclear family because that comes with everything that comes down right from Christendom, like the nuclear family, the idea of a functional family. And when you look at the things that they're pushing in our society, it's constantly an attack on the family unit.
Let's think about it in terms of Catholic theology, the transcendentals. These are those qualities of reality that all people are drawn to, that give us a little taste of what our Lord may be like. And depending on whose theology you read, typically there's four of them: beauty, truth, goodness, and unity. Right. So you often hear religious people talking about the good, the beautiful, and the true. Right. Those are the things that the ADL wages war against, along with all of the other bodies of a similar kind. They will celebrate the ugliest statues possible. They will spread as many lies as possible, and they will propagate and seek to um, enshrine evil and wretched things, Planned
Mm.
Parenthood, whatever. The good, the beautiful, and the true. And of course, they create disharmony and disunity and break people apart. It is those things that I always find it very helpful to think about the way that the enemy has fought over the last 100 years in this country in terms of those things, the transcendentals, because um, it sort of checks off all the fronts they've been fighting on. They've been getting it, even if we haven't. Well, America didn't because it's Protestant. Didn't there's lost sight of this. But the bad guys knew exactly what they were doing because they know what Catholics know, which is in just the same way that Satanists know what Catholics know. They just follow, do something different, which is that those things tend to go together. And if you make a society that is beautiful and that tells the truth, it's likely also to be good. And if you have, somebody who always tells the truth and has good morals, they're probably going to express those things in beautiful language. These things somehow have a relationship together because they're all qualities of God, but also because they seem somehow to lead to one another. And many people come to the faith, especially the Catholic faith, through art, through architecture, through beauty, because they see something in it, they feel something kind of humming behind it, and that humming is God. And eventually it tumbles into the good and the true things they find out about God later, but they're drawn in by something objectively, independently beautiful, eternally beautiful about something that they have seen, or a melody they have heard, or all of those things. The great richness of the Western whatever. And by unpicking the mutually reinforcing structure that used to fuel our culture and hold us all together. Beauty, truth, goodness, and unity. These things that we all thought reflexively that we would, of course, we were all, searching for and pointing towards, by making the world ugly, putting fat girls on the magazines, making the statues horrendous. Leslie Jones. Haven't I suffered for that one?
Lena Dunham. That wasn't fair.
Lena Dunham.
What did I do?
She's come back bigger than ever. She's, in an age of Ozempic, it takes some determination to be that fat.
But she is. It was so intentional for her to do to introduce us into the culture, get this deal with HBO. It's going to be the greatest show ever. And then they put her on every magazine cover. Oh, it's so brave. It's so beautiful. But there is an element of this. I really want to underscore this. The lie, them trying to sell it to us and then say there's something wrong with you if you recoil when you see Lena Dunham naked. Of course, there's such a thing as objective beauty. They're trying to teach us that beauty is subjective.
My recovery is rocky enough as it is.
Yeah, it's like,
I could do without that.
But seriously, they're trying to train our minds to believe that everything is subjective. And there's something about that perspective that is fundamentally satanic and demonic and backwards, because it's like, no, stop trying to convince me that this really ugly, modern contraption and that you're calling a building is just as beautiful as when I step into a Catholic cathedral.
And so the Russians understand this, right? And so when they talk, when you hear the KGB guys talking about demoralization of a population, right? They're saying they understand that if you make people say things they know aren't true, and support things they know are bad, and admire or perform admiration toward things they find ugly, they're going to get depressed.
Yeah, when you say something that you know to be untrue, I used to talk about this.
It makes you feel unsettled.
No, but it's even worse. It's because there is this culture of that. I would look under Lena Dunham posting herself like a total slob, and people would say, stunning and brave, so beautiful, right. Like you're so inspiring.
Look at the morality.
A little piece of you, it does something to your spirit when you speak an untruth like that. You know that's not true.
Yep.
Why are you saying that?
And so when the Berlin Wall fell, everybody was like suddenly Western. It was because everybody had been lying about what they really believed. It was called, a sociologist referred to it as preference falsification, right? All of society, basically everybody, had this incredibly powerful social pressure to all say that they believed and supported this, when in reality, they were like secretly trying to listen to the radio from over there. So when there's the opportunity, everybody suddenly changes all at once. And we just saw that again with woke, with trans, with Trump coming in. Just this extraordinary. I mean, what was the view? I don't know when you will be watching this, but when we recorded it, it was on that happy day. The View was reportedly cancelled. Did you see that today?
No, were they actually canceled? No, I don't think that's right.
Well, I like to believe it, and I'm never going to watch it again, so I'm going to believe that it was cancelled today. But it's coming off the back of Colbert, and so these things are crumbling because the artifice of lies is crumbling, because the infrastructure that requires the wickedness is no longer there, and so we don't need ugly, untalented, falsely propped up people on television anymore. and they're going to have to go rebuild and do something else. But
Mark, do you mind looking up and seeing if you can pull that up, if whether The View is canceled today? I actually haven't.
it's
Wow, the Rosie, The View will be
I want to.
Rosie O'Donnell fears The View will be canceled for not
Oh no!
aligning
So,
with
so
Trump.
you've ruined my day now. You've ruined my day.
White House.
I was hoping The View would be cancelled while Meghan McCain was on it, so that she would always think it was her. But I well, I'm choosing to believe that it was cancelled.
But but they are kind of trying to tell us. And forgetting about The View, we are seeing that
Everything's crumbling.
a lot of it is crumbling. Hollywood's influence.
Howard Stern's contract
That's
was cancelled.
correct.
And these are things that are in themselves lies, because they are contracts that are not profitable, but are propped up by other things. They are lies in themselves.
Okay. We got to talk about this because I literally covered this on my show last week. Barry Weiss. This is the greatest example of this.
Oh my
The
goodness.
free press. They are trying to
Oh.
convince us Barry Weiss
She wa-
is
it-
worth $250 million. They
There's-
have no views on YouTube.
There's a Jewish word for calling for saying that your publication, the Free Press, is worth $250 million. It's called chutzpah.
No, but
If you call it-
everyone is actually investing. Every
Stop.
billionaire is investing in her. So let's actually think through this. What are they doing? It is so obvious that this publication, if we actually lived in a free market society, would be under.
So technically speaking, things are worth what somebody is willing to pay for them under capitalism.
Right.
There's a big buck coming, but a company's valuation is determined by the price at which people are willing to buy in, to exchange capital for slices of the company, and the ratio at which they do that determines what the whole thing is worth. But it has been a very long time since people invested in companies solely for profitable returns. We now live in a very different world. We live in a late stage, monopolistic, decadent capitalist world in which everything is one of the same 5 corporations. So it doesn't matter, and it never will, that company isn't worth a tenth or a hundredth of what they say, because a multinational conglomerate that doesn't care will buy it at that valuation anyway and continue to run it at a loss if they choose to,
But
because
why?
it has cultural value.
But it doesn't have any cultural value. No one's listening to Barry Weiss. So
Well-
what are they doing? Are they
Well,
pretending?
what they're doing is building the propaganda machinery of tomorrow,
Yeah, that's what I was
because
thinking.
the entire edifice of the prestige media has been so badly damaged and discredited by the last 10 years, by themselves. They did it themselves. That there is no publication out there that still commands the respect and adulation and trust of the public. Nothing. None of them. And the ones that do have the most confidence of the public, we just defunded. NPR and whatnot, which were coasting on a kind of authoritative tone to bamboozle people into thinking they were telling the truth. Not really telling the truth, but they did. So we have an enormous vacuum in the media landscape that I think they're going to fill by overvaluing, and then very quickly, in the same way that hedge funds will buy. You remember All Saints, that clothing store? There was one in Spitalfields or Shoreditch in London, and there was one somewhere else, and then suddenly they were in every town. It's the hedge fund thing. It's the Blackstone thing. It's the so they buy this, and they're going to just federate it out. There'll be before you know it, there will be 5,000 free press journalists.
I totally agree
And
with
what
you.
are they really? They're not journalists. They are instruments of propaganda for
the state.
Orwell didn't foresee this, but for that sick mix of state and corrupt capitalism, the revolving door between big pharma, big oil, the military-industrial complex, and the government, right? All of it together. And so those people require a complex, large, and powerful propaganda system in order to get away with stuff like selling people poison and telling them it's medicine.
Right.
And to do that, they need people that the public will more or less, by and large, trust. So my read on Barry Weiss is that she is the most malleable, controllable, anodyne, empty-headed, willing to do, say, and be anything person they could find, and therefore is perfect to head up an organization that will be not a journalistic institution as we have known them, but rather a room of broadcasters for rent, depending on who that week needs to persuade the American public of some lies, whether it is the Israel lobby or Big Pharma.
Okay, so interesting question for you. a lot of people that are being propped up, a lot of people that have power are, in fact, especially in the media, gay. They're homosexuals, right? Barry Weiss, she was married to a man, but now she's married to a woman and having children with
Well,
a
lesbians aren't real.
yeah. Well, lesbians aren't real. Well, tell that to Barry Weiss, and
Well,
whether
nothing about her is real,
well, what do you think of like, a lot of people that are in power,
especially her valuation. Um,
particularly her valuation, but
maybe that's why they chose her. You see, but a woman who believes that she's sexually attracted to another woman can believe anything. I mean, once you if you're a woman, you convince yourself that you are sexually attracted to another. I mean, even lesbians don't keep it up more than 6 months after they get married. It's called lesbian bed death. They stop having sex completely and they just turn into sort of miserable old knitters. Sort of and then of course the domestic violence starts spooling up because the pretty one gets a boyfriend on the side, and the big ugly dykey one beats the crap out of her twice a week, because it is what a dysfunctional, disordered arrangement,
Mm.
which is guaranteed by virtue of its cacophony of lunging, flailing, mispunching intentions to produce horrors like Dave Rubin's Frankenbabies. When the thought of it, just like, oh, let's both and then stir it and then see, like, oh my god.
Well, I think it'd be
Um,
even like okay, so another
s-
person in
s-
media, like you got Don Lemon, you've got you
what
said
why do you think, based on what we've discussed so far, would you choose gays to be the front man for the real powerful people whose names you'll never learn, and who will never be held accountable because they're so used to playing characters already? They'll do whatever you want. They'll say whatever you want. They will actually and in fact inhabit they will believe whatever they need to, and they will be uh, your endlessly and infinitely malleable propagandists and figureheads,
interesting.
because they are so used already to stitching together things on the fly and saying things they don't believe and having no idea what the real truth is. And isn't that just what's happened to the press? It's become homosexualized, it's splintered, and we have this now. We have chunks of things that kind of sort of work, but there's nothing at the heart of it. It doesn't know what it's for. It's forgotten its role as the fourth estate. Why? Because it is full of gay people doing PR.
Okay, so here's a question for you. What how does the government win by trying to indoctrinate everybody into an increasingly more homosexual culture? Because it's of course the government has to win, right? They have to
Because
bend they have
because
to
broken, damaged people are far more compliant because they're needier and they're weaker. So people don't understand why big companies love diversity. And they're like, well, wouldn't that just like make you less efficient? Or no, it's because diverse workforces don't unionize. Amazon loves diversity because if you have an Italian American, a Mexican, a Guatemalan, and nobody knows what she is, they won't get together outside of work and talk about what the boss is doing. They won't have the same priorities. They won't have the same way of doing things. They probably won't even talk at work. They'll find the other Mexican, or they'll find the other whatever, or they'll just sort of sullenly do their job and go home. And this completely divided, fractured, dysfunctional workforce that doesn't represent anything like the old factories or workplaces of the past, where people were invested in each other's careers and kids, and took things to the office. Oh, I baked today or whatever. You can't imagine that happening in an Amazon warehouse, and it doesn't. Um, these workforces are full of people so utterly different from one another, who have nothing in common and don't really know how to communicate with one another, and don't unless they have to. Those workforces are neutralized in terms of political dissent or collective bargaining. And Amazon will never have to worry about their workers all going out on strike one day because the wages are too low. They'll never have to worry about the workforce having an attack of the vapors or morals, saying, we don't think we should sell this anymore. I know it's very profitable for you, but we're not going to pack it. They never have to worry about that, because there aren't four people in that building who have enough in common to have a coffee at lunchtime and say, we really should do something about this.
mm,
So, in the same way, the government that is intricately involved in the sale and regulation and in some cases punishment of a variety of different poisons and drugs and all the rest of it. I mean, they tell basically they tell you which ones you can have, and they give licenses to companies to profit from it. The more fractured and the more dumb and dependent the population is, the more they will need to play ball so that they get their Adderall, so that they get their paycheck, so they don't fall behind with their compound interest payments for the television that they don't own, so that they because with everybody living paycheck to paycheck and surrounded by these addictions and dependencies from their brokenness, from their disorder, from their misery, from their unhappiness. These cushions that they use, or these medications, or these whatever they are, that they use to fix their mood from one day to the next. They need that stuff. They need it, and it makes that person. It takes that person completely out of the running for social dissidence. That person can't even take a month off work, let alone go and protest what the government's doing. And so they become, as we now have in America, miserable, demoralized wage slaves who are living in a prison of compound interest debt, and who live lives they never wanted and don't and wouldn't choose, but which were sort of provided for them as as an aspirational lifestyle goal by the same press that does, and they can't afford, and they're frightened of taking that time off and seeing what it would mean. And then other things begin to happen, which you'll just start noticing now in the last 10, 20 years in America. Other crazy making things start to happen. I live in a house. There's a friend of mine. A friend of mine owns this house. It is a 1920s travertine marble and concrete mansion, huge, whacking great thing on top of a hill. And it is the only house I've ever been in America that feels solid, like it might be here in 50 years.
Mm.
Everything else in America, you must having been to Europe so much now with your husband, you must.
The architecture is
things just feel like they're going to last.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not wrong. You're not imagining it. I always tell this story, and people get sort of this, but my mother had a corkscrew that she bought in Paris when I was a baby, which she still had when I was 18, and I know that because I stole it. That worked fine, and we're Brits, so we were drinkers. I mean, she was using that thing every day, and it lasted. You can't buy one that lasts a year in America. You're lucky if you can find one that lasts 6 months, right? Everything about the built environment is becoming disposable, dispensable, fragile. The walls are getting thinner, so you can hear the people next to you. And you might have somehow managed to beat the economics of 2025 and buy yourself a house, but that house is falling apart the moment it's finished. Things are peeling. The workmanship is terrible. The materials are terrible. Everything is done. In a slipshod fashion, and it makes people terrified of taking risks, because so much about their life is uncertain or painful or uncontrollable or chaotic already.
Mm.
And so you have people trapped in this jail, trying to keep abreast of repairs on their house, repairs on the car. I mean, like every consumer device now is $2,000 or $3,000 in breaks.
Mm-hmm.
That is not all right. But every single thing is like it now. I was looking for.
Americans definitely have been kind of taught, sorry to cut you off, but Americans sort of have been taught to like embrace this new culture, stainless steel, everything is so clinical.
But it's sold as a signifier of wealth, when anybody from a truly wealthy background
family,
in Europe
exact opposite.
will tell you that is the sign of poverty, of only being able to afford something that doesn't last. When Black Americans were first emancipated and they were building these new lives, Black consumers in America in the 1950s and 60s went into department stores and bought the best that they could afford, the best brands, the best quality brands, because they knew it had to last. Because they were building a life, like a life that had a future. They were looking ahead to their children having a destiny in America, and they wanted to build something real and something with foundation. Right? You hear a lot of Black grandmas these days talking, that's your foundation. Right? It's a big word that you hear like maybe 2 generations up in Black America. That's your foundation. Ayanla says it a lot. The Ayanla Van Zandt. The consumers in the 1950s, if you worked in a department store, you would know if a Black couple came in or a wife, she wanted not the most ostentatious one, but the very best quality brand, better than the white people would buy, and she was going to look after it, take care of it, have it for 20 years. That's what you do when you have an investment in the future. That's what you do when you have hope for the future. That's what you do when you're building something that will be a legacy for for generations to come. What we have now, especially in white working class America, where the raison d'etre of the town is gone as well as everything falling to pieces, but really just in the country generally, is this flattening and cheapening of all our life through this fake, wealthy people just throw it away when they're done with it. Waste the sort of uh, uh, this wealth mythology that Americans have been sold. Like, if you can just buy another one, that means you're doing well, right? It doesn't matter that it broke or whatever, or that you buy. Like, I was looking at I'm a cat person. I was looking at those robots, that because I'm not touching litter, and my maid can't be there every day.
Oh, yeah,
So
the litter robots.
yeah,
Mhm.
and the leader in the market, which costs $700, and they've been making these things since 1990, killed 2 cats 3 months ago. They still haven't got it right. They still don't make it right. I think either take it off the market or don't build cheap. And the reason is that it was built so cheaply that the magnets kind of fell over. It like trapped and killed because even things that are designed to go in your home for the benefit of living creatures are made with such contempt and carelessness, and yet priced so astronomically as to make everyone crazy, and it has made everyone crazy.
Yeah. And I mean, even in regards to food, because kind of this idea of it, like, well, we can feed more people. What are you feeding them? You're feeding them crap. Nothing is ancestral anymore. That's what I always say about America. Nothing is ancestral. When you say ancestral, I mean, even if you think about people's families, that people don't know where they come from anymore,
Mhm.
right? So there's nothing that has any substance. There's nothing that has that
People can't
foundation.
imagine the world before they were born.
And they're trying to speed that up. And that is the danger that I see
Yes.
in AI. It's the
Yes.
reason why, while everyone else is sort of embracing this, like,
It's
people
so
were
creepy.
giving
It's
the
so
the
creepy.
hero's welcome when Elon Musk joined the administration. I'm sitting here going, this is terrible. This is not a good idea. He actually believes in transhumanism. Okay,
Well,
you
is his
have these
father the founder or
characters.
something?
Yeah, his
His
grandfather.
granddad
His
was like the.
grandfather was a part of this sort of transhumanist movement in Canada.
This is difficult for me because I'm going blind and I have about 5 or 6 years of vision left. And so his chip is probably the only thing that's hold out any hope of me being able to make my own way.
Don't ever give the government access to your brain.
The problem is
We already have given the government
the
access to
problem
our
is
brain, and look at what's
the
happened.
problem is somebody could put me in pastels without me knowing. And so some way to go in my recovery. No, but his thing but just about the only it is. I saw a woman writing that on the screen. And I was like, oh, that's one of those that's like Christ in the desert, kind of like a glass of water kind of territory. And it's like, oh, I must have it. Really mesmerizing, alluring, kind of sickening, sort of an inducement, of an enticement.
But that's
No,
how they get you.
yes,
It's
yes, of course. I was amused to see that the latest iteration of self-driving cars is consistently turning people straight into oncoming traffic. It's like, yeah,
Of
even
course. I mean,
even the cars want to kill themselves.
it's like this is the whole thing. It's like they want to control every aspect of your life, including your brain. So it's not enough to just fill your mind with propaganda and lies every single day. Now they're like, actually open up your mind.
They
We're
want
going
to
to sort of
steer
chip
for you. They
into
want to
it.
steer your car
What
for
could
you.
possibly go wrong?
They
If
wanna
you
steer your
have
car
these
for you.
people who found, like, the foundation of that transhumanist thought was the idea that they're like, hey, we don't actually believe in democracy. We think too many people are stupid. We are the smart people. Allow us to, like, rule the world. Actually, his grandfather, particularly Elon Musk's grandfather or great grandfather in Canada, was a part of the technocratic movement, right? So they believed in technocracy.
This is my problem with America. When you rip out God and the King, you can't replace it with the stars and stripes and a couple of slogans. You can't just say, "Oh, freedom, 4th of July," and think that an entire intricate system of human governance and flourishing and culture and faith that was all tending up toward that a capstone uh, on earth as it is in heaven, an earthly reflection of the heavenly order, the
Mhm.
aristocracy and the king, the angels and our Lord. Rip that out of the heart of the system and expect everything to be okay, because you don't just get rid of it. You make room for something worse to move in.
Right.
And na-
Hollywood
and
became
na-
the king and the queen. The
correct,
Beyoncés, the
correct.
Jay-Z's. You see people
And
worshiping Hollywood.
and the problem is that if you have a bad king, you're not supposed to, but you can kill him. You can assassinate him, and people do. When there's a crazy, cruel, terrible king who's doing absolutely insane things, somebody kills him eventually. But if you don't know the names of the people who rule over you, because they're all hiding behind the rippling stars and stripes like this, making a fortune from you, poisoning you, lying to you, experimenting on you, mutilating your children or convincing you to do it. This is that when the Russians said that we'll know that America's conquered when people don't just that people will see their chains, love them, and ask for more. And don't we live in that situation now, where we've got parents asking doctors to mutilate their own kids just to relieve their own consciences of whatever it was that they messed up during parenting, or for even worse reasons. I mean, the things that single mothers are prepared to do to their kids, there's almost no depth to the horror of it. We in 1776 does not make America free of monarchy. It just means you don't know who's in charge, and you'll never be able to hold them accountable.
Who do you think is in charge?
Um,
Good question.
it seems obvious to me from everything we know about empires and long-lasting cultures how and when they fall, how and when they do it, the characteristics that it has. I think we can see in that hints about the perpetual elite class that seems to kind of exist throughout because those are the excesses, I think, that the elites embody that they can do, but when it permeates down to the rest of society, things fall apart. So at the end of Rome, you have the Visigoths sacking the city, and the senators are not doing what they're supposed to do. They're not in the Senate. They're out with child prostitutes, or they're gay orgies, or they're whatever. When you start to see I think that Camille Paglia, who we're not supposed to quote anymore because people keep finding things about man-boy love in her books, but other than that, she's pretty good on most subjects. When she talks about this, she talks about the things that civilizations have in common just before the fall. Every single one of them has a trans craze, all of them. Every single great empire, every single great culture that has ever existed in the history of human civilization has had some kind of gender queer or male-female sex confusion right before the end.
Jumping in here to tell you guys about the wellness company, because what if I told you that parasites could be living inside of you right now, causing tumors, severe neurological problems without you even realizing that they're the culprit? And we know most doctors are not trained to look at root cause issues. Dr. Peter McCullough, one of America's leading medical experts, recently highlighted a shocking case in the New England Journal of Medicine where a man went blind in one eye from a parasitic worm. We are learning across areas of medical expertise that parasites are real and they are a growing threat. These are not third world issues. The CDC has even admitted that millions of Americans suffer from parasitic infections that often go undetected until they cause cancer, seizures, or even heart failure. That's why Dr. McCullough says this makes the case to do a medical grade parasite cleanse at least once a year. The wellness company's Ivermectin Plus Mebendazole Parasite Cleanse is a doctor-prescribed, USA compounded gold standard combination designed to help the body eliminate all types of parasites. One cycle is only 21 days, but you will get a 90-day supply. The process is fully digital. You fill out a personal intake form, a doctor will review it, and then your cleanse will arrive in 1 week. Be proactive with the wellness company's parasite cleanse. Head to twc.health/Candace and use code Candace, and you'll save $90. Plus, you'll have free shipping. Cleanse your body today. Visit twc.health/Candace with promo code Candace. Also, reminding you guys about Tax Network USA, because if you're stressed out about back taxes, maybe you missed the April deadline or your books are a mess, you shouldn't wait. The IRS is always cracking down. Penalties add up fast, 5% per month, up to 25% just for not filing. But there is help. Tax Network USA can take the burden off your shoulders and stop the spiral before it gets worse. They've helped thousands of Americans, so whether you're an employee, a small business owner, or you haven't filed in years, they've seen it all and they know exactly how to clean it up. With direct access to powerful IRS programs and expert negotiators on your side, Tax Network USA knows how to help you win. You'll get a free consultation, and if you qualify, they may even be able to reduce or eliminate what you owe. More importantly, they'll help protect you from wage garnishments or bank levies, so do not wait for the next IRS letter. Call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Candace. You may have missed the tax deadline, but you haven't run out of options. Let Tax Network USA help. Again, call 1-800-958-1000 or visit tnusa.com/Candace. Well, this is why I've been quite interested in what the theology is that's guiding this, because I think these people keep keep surviving every they're at the top and then they kind of reinvent themselves and they get at the top again and America is getting very close. And the more that I examine, getting back to Sigmund Freud and Hollywood, what was super interesting to me is to learn that the guiding theology seems to be the Kabbalah. And when you think about what the Kabbalists believe, and part of it is oral tradition, so we'll never really know what they believe. But Sigmund Freud was a Kabbalist, at least if David Bakan and other historians are to be believed. There is this combination of a man becoming the woman. And in Hollywood Babylon, it talks
Right.
about how we imported, which is where Sigmund Freud was living and working in Vienna. They Alt Wien, this old Vienna
Right.
culture,
Yes. 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 Yes.
literally came over. They were bringing them over, these literal pedophiles.
Yes.
And Marlene Dietrich trying to tell women in America, which they did successfully, you should be wearing pantsuits, making these people seem iconic. Like, oh my gosh, she's blending
Don't come
the
from
male
don't come
and
from Marlene Dietrich. That's going to make me very sad.
yeah, no, she was one of them. They
I
brought
know,
her over.
I
They found
know,
her in
I
old.
know,
They
I know,
found
but I'm
her.
trying to.
No, you have to.
You don't
She's
know.
part of
You
this.
don't know what it took for me to let go of dinosaurs, and it took me years to.
I know.
It took me years to let go of
But
dinosaurs.
dinosaurs is hard for
Like
guys.
Jurassic Park is like
I know.
it is the aside from
They are fake and gay, though.
aside from getting raped, it is the like seminal moment of my childhood.
Like-
I'm sorry, but
Dinosaurs.
going to see Jurassic Park in the movies for the first time.
Really?
I watched that movie 500 times.
What is it
I'm not
with boys and
exaggerating.
dinosaurs? They just love them so much.
Oh, we love them so much.
Right. You like the idea of them.
I know that movie backwards. I know every line of dialogue. I taught myself. Do you remember where she says, "This is a Unix system. I know this." Lex, the computer geek girl who figures out how to lock the doors when the Velociraptor. All right, okay, you don't know, but when the Velociraptors are hunting them in the visitor center, right towards the end, she figures out how to close the doors. Like I bought a computer like that and taught myself. It was like that was such a penetrating thing for me, Jurassic Park and dinosaurs. Like I wanted to use the same computer they had in the movie. I had it on my, it was everywhere, and I still love it. And I still have a soft spot for it. And to let go of dinosaurs was very difficult. I'm not quite ready for Marlene Dietrich yet.
You need to be ready for that because I'm telling you, she was imported over here by a bunch of German pedophiles for a reason. And then when you look at the pictures of her with Pierre Berger, Yves Saint Laurent, Pierre Leger, all of these people who are interested in bending the gender and fashion, the whole fashion, the Balenciaga, the kids. This is now that I'm getting into the culture of Brigitte and who Brigitte was friends with, and all of them just happen to have a thing for kids.
You've been
and
telling me about
pederasty.
French designers, and I've been very reassured by my instincts to discover that when I return to my wardrobe, it is Dolce & Gabbana, Versace, Loro Piana. It's all Italian.
I haven't.
No, they have different problems. But
they have different problems. Yeah, but the French designers
all have
they liked little boys.
harems of catamites.
Yep, and they
100%.
absolutely loved Marlene Dietrich for a reason.
Although I don't think that Karl Lagerfeld did actually. I think Karl Lagerfeld was gay, but I don't think he was into it. I think he was one of the few that wasn't.
All I'm going to do
and the way that I know that is because he was very unrepentantly and joyfully racist and sexist and un-PC, and he didn't seem to be part of the cult of conformity and he didn't have anything in common with the other. I need to believe this, okay?
I will say this: he has not yet come up in my research, so there's that.
So you have
but the fashion industry really was built upon.
You have to allow me my fictions because I'll go crazy without them.
Yeah.
We mentioned.
I'll allow Karl Lagerfeld to be your dinosaur.
We mentioned
I'll let him be your dinosaur
we mentioned on the last show that your radical skepticism is the only rational position in a world like ours. But I am a romantic. I'm with a capital R. I can't go on with everything taken. I must have.
Yves Saint Laurent and Pierre Berger were into defecation during sex, so that's why they split up.
Yeah, them and every Saudi.
Yeah.
I mean, if you've ever seen anyone on Instagram that's kind of impossibly beautiful and usually mostly unclothed, that's a prostitute. They are escorts, and those people go to Dubai a couple of times a year to have the most extraordinarily depraved things done to them in exchange for.
But this is what these fashion designers were into, and so this is as I'm researching. And sadly, this came up when I was learning about Emmanuel Macron.
It'd be difficult
and
to give up Yves Saint
the
Laurent.
cast of characters around them, but learning what they were into, and a lot of their male prostitutes then spoke up, and their sex slaves. They had these sex slaves, but it is quite stunning. I bring this up only to really underscore that our entire society, Hollywood, right, was shaped. We were literally all being unwittingly indoctrinated into a culture of homosexuality, transgenderism, the belief of the male and the female coming
This is
together to
more of a
form
loss
one
for
is
you than it is for me,
Kabbalist.
because if you lose France, you lose Chanel and Dior, and those are girl brands.
Mm.
Uh, Whereas Italy, I mean, it would be devastating to lose Italian shoes or
I'm now
suits.
convinced.
So it's worse for women to lose France, because France is the pinnacle of female fashion. It's the home of haute couture, right? So you want one of those extraordinarily expensive dresses cut just for you by
Well,
one of
you should read
it's
what they were
it's
doing.
Paris.
Like they thought it was inspiring to
Yeah,
them
sure.
to
I
be with
I
these
can
young
I
boys.
can
I mean,
imagine. I was
it
gay.
ruins
I was gay for
everything.
long enough. I can imagine.
Yeah, exactly.
And this sadistic treatment of women, putting them, the whole model culture and fashion, whatever, which sometimes is directed at the beautiful and sensual and pleasing, but more often these days is a kind of ugly humiliation and debasement. The things that and this is, oh no, we're going to have to give up Tyra Banks as well because she's part of this. Uh, this is all,
The entire fashion
I
industry.
can't handle this much truth. You
But we
do.
know this is like
We've got
we
you for
look at
that.
it now and we're like, okay, yeah, everybody in the fashion industry is gay,
No,
but we didn't
but
think
the
it was.
humiliation that they put women through, the cruelty they put the women
Mhm,
through in
mhm.
fashion, the gay men. Why? Because they're visiting they know that their moms did it to them,
Oh, I have a
and
question. Yeah, I was going to ask you this. So something that I have noticed: gay men hate women. Too many of them, not all of them, obviously. But what I'm saying is that there is a certain level of
it's
vitriol that is reserved
yes,
for
but
for women.
it's
Where does
not.
that come from? I don't understand it.
It is. They lash out at other women because they can't at their mothers who did it to them. So when I have this, I have it, I'm not proud of it. I mean, sometimes I am because it's funny, and then I have to kind of catch myself. Um, just the other day, I took more pleasure than I should, more pleasure certainly than was charitable, in sharing the sexual history and peccadillos of some turning point influencer. And I found myself posting a picture of a man she had public sex with at a TPUSA party, um, uh, saying, "I really shouldn't post this. She is getting married in 11 days." She is. She was. And it. I mean, in retrospect, yes, it is still funny, and so you could make a case that it's justified, but uh, I didn't do it because I wanted to improve the moral standing of women. I did it because it was mean.
Yeah, but
Um,
why do
and
gay men have a
and
mean
and
streak?
it's because there is a a wound that will never heal at the heart of every gay person, made by their mothers, who, for instance, so you know that there's a higher self-reported incidence of homosexuality in black and Jewish among black and Jewish Americans. You can
Yes.
guess why, right?
Well, I definitely have noticed that a high incident of a lot of gay people that are Jewish.
And black?
Black people, I'd imagine, because of prison.
No. Well, yes, fatherlessness. Yes.
Hmm.
So if you have no male role models,
Yeah.
is bad enough. But that's not what black kids experience. Black kids experience a steady drip feed of poison from their own mothers about the male role models they should have had,
That's
who
true.
made them. And eventually the mothers will start visiting this stuff on the sons when the sons become sufficiently like their dad. When they start having
Mm.
sex, when they start getting girlfriends, mom starts treating the son
But then
like.
what's the
But the
what about Jewish people? Because their
well,
families are together.
what is it? Well, think about the Jewish marriages that you know. Think about the couples. You have almost exclusively, you have larger than life, raucous women with nebbish, scholarly, quiet men who take almost no interest in the raising of the children, and the women who are so unbearably, exhaustingly exasperating that the husbands just let them make all the decisions about how the house goes, right, and how the house is run. I like to compare Jewish um, weddings to Jewish marriages to lion taming. You have this little guy and this, and it's unlike female suffrage, let's say in London, where it's the men granting it to the women.
Mm.
The women are asking for it, but it's the men that have to give it to them. Uh, it was Jewish women who appointed themselves rabbis. who said, "My husband's an idiot. I could be a rabbi." You know,
No, the Jewish women were behind the feminist movement in
right,
America.
right.
They were behind
But
the
so,
revolution
so
in
this is so
Russia.
this is what I'm
Jewish
saying.
women,
So overbearing mothers
yeah,
and absent, inadequate, or neglectful fathers, that's a recipe for homosexuality.
interesting.
Uh, just as much as some other more uh, physically traumatic or psychologically traumatic events might be. That particular combination, the overbearing, micromanaging mother who thinks she knows best but does not know what a boy needs, and the father who's useless or absent, or in my case is a killer, that's how you make gays. Crap dads and omnipresent octomom, well, not octomom, but we know what I mean. Um, Boys especially, they need a father or some kind of male role model. Women cannot raise boys by themselves. They don't know what men need to form platonic relationships with other men, because those moms never have themselves. They've only ever bounced from unsatisfactory boyfriend to unsatisfactory boyfriend, and in most cases, don't have a good relationship with their own brothers and fathers.
It's actually so interesting. I think that the biggest question you can ask anyone is what their relationship is like with their mother and their father, because and this is the reason why they're attacking family. Because when you come from a nuclear family, a healthy family
Mhm.
dynamic, a mother and
You
a
are
father that are
invulnerable to 90% of the warfare.
yeah, that they're trying
Think
to.
about the Catholic
I
family.
mean, this is why they want to enslave us. So it's like the easiest way to
Exactly.
enslave any
If
group of
you're
people
think about the
is
Catholic
to
families
destroy
you
their
know.
families.
Think about the Catholic families you know who aren't converts but have been like going to the parish for like 20 years, right? How unreachable they are by Lizzo or uh, or campus rape culture or transgender
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, if they were even to hear of such things, which of course they do from time to time, they would regard it with a mixture of pity, horror, and amusement.
Mhm.
Uh, they're completely immunized against it because they have their needs met by an authentic relationship with our Lord and each other, a healthy family, right? Because they have no, or at least less, fewer dysfunctions, diseases, mental illnesses. Of course, the vast majority of mental illness is just guilt from sin. They have less of that because they're going to confession every week. They don't need the beast system. They don't need the drugs. They don't need to be lied to. They don't need the mood fixes. They don't need a car that's uh, not even nice, but just expensive looking and expensive, and flimsy and on credit. Catholic, those Catholic families where everybody's, you kind of almost feel awkward to be around them. It's like everybody's like so well behaved. You're like, well, oh, just don't say shit, don't say shit. In my brain, of course, it's much worse than that. I'm just like, the most depraved thing I can think of pops into my head, and I just have to leave. But they're not tempted. They always drive what do you call it? They drive hoopties, because that's all you need. Is like, who cares? Those people who have a strong family and God, they don't need anything that the devil is selling.
So true. It's funny going back to what you were saying about the transcendentals. I think about this even in regards to music. So I can't listen to the music that I used to listen to. Suddenly, the cursing sounds very harsh
Okay,
to me
what have
to
you
my
gone?
ears.
What have you gone off? What did you used to like and don't know?
Well, I used to be able to listen to. I still have it on my phone, but like a lot of swearing, a lot of
Negro
rap.
music.
Like, well, I listen to everything. I've always listened to everything. I mean, I grew up listening to Lauryn Hill and like Whitney
Oh, well,
Houston. I
that's
was
perfectly respectable.
right, exactly. But what I mean is that I
I
used
was
to
the
be
first
able
person
to
in England
mix
to buy the
in.
Score CD.
I would almost say I actually started listening to more rap music when I got into college.
Mhm.
And even I mean, so many different songs. Even if I go back and listen to when I love Christina Aguilera, right? Like a girl, normal teenage.
But there's something off about her now, isn't there?
When you
When
go
you
back and
when
listen
you
to
listen
it,
to
I'm like, this
Dirty,
is so
especially when you
sexual. And she was 17
especially
years old.
especially
She's
when you see
calling
the
herself a genie in a bottle that needs to be rubbed. I'm like, this is
yeah.
pornography for your
Yes,
ears.
I'm a genie in a bottle, gotta rub me the right way.
Yes. And she was 17 years
And
old.
when you see the Dirty video and you realize that this is a girl who has been wrecked by the entertainment industry, and they then use her damage to sell sex in a different way,
Ariana Grande, I
moving
bended
from,
all night, I bended
uh,
all day. And when
I
you
call her
actually
Dark Mariah.
abstain, it takes actually, when you begin abstaining, it isn't unlike a recovery in that your ears repair, your
It's
brain
like
repairs.
diets. I mean,
Yes. And then,
well,
but then when
so I
you,
understand. I've never been on a diet, but I
right,
understand that if you eat
yeah, if you
salad, you
stop
start not
listening to
wanting.
it, even if you stop listening to it, if you want people are listening at home, challenge yourself to stop listening to maybe all music, right? For let's call it a month, and then go back and try to
Yes.
listen to something with expletives, and you suddenly go,
And you know
"Whoa!"
why? You know why? It's Aristotle. Habits become character.
Mhm.
We're creatures of routine and habit. That's why we have to do the rosary, why we have to go to mass on Sundays.
Right.
It's why church is a regular commitment and
Mhm.
not a one-off. It's why we have to. It's why we're encouraged to do these rituals. Right. It's why Catholicism is so good for drug addicts snapping out of it, because you can replace the bad rituals of the drugs and sex with the wholesome rituals of things like the rosary, right?
Mm.
The Angelus, whatever. Um, we are creatures of habit. Indeed, half the species are creatures of a literal cycle, a repeating uh, period of time that dictates everything about all of our lives, but is also it's kind of the primary way in which we measure time, the seasons, the months. Uh, it's because of the natural cycle of womanhood. Women find it especially easy to fall. So it's always women that you will find, at the back of church doing their rosaries like every day at the same time. Men find it difficult to be consistent about that sometimes because they're out here doing this, that, and whatever. But we're creatures of habit,
Mm.
and so we can make ourselves. You can get better. You can get better. What have you been drawn to that you didn't used to listen to that you do now? And then I'm going to tell you a crazy story about what happened to me when I stopped being gay. But what have you like? What have you sort of started going? Oh, okay,
A lot of things. Well, first and foremost, I would say I did not when we first got married, and my husband loves the chanting, the Gregorian chants.
it's difficult, isn't it?
W-
It's a lot to take.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. Even I have trouble with it. The Anglican tradition is so much more, like the royal wedding music. Like, I was glad, brr, 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 all the grand, wonderful kind of pomp and ceremonies, and that is so much easier to listen to
Right.
than the sort of. Look, a lot of Catholics have trouble with Gregorian chant. It is for me. I still find it more of a meditative aid than a pleasure I seek out.
Right. But I think
But you
one of
like
the
it now,
things that
huh?
I've noticed, though, is just kind of, which was what Bishop Barrow wrote in his book, which I think was actually a major contributor to me wanting to be Catholic, was when he said that anything that becomes broken and becomes away from being whole gets closer to the devil, right? So if you start to break down a family, if you start to break down music, if you take anything and you start to fracture it, the more fractured it becomes, the closer it becomes to the devil, right?
So
Holy is
syncopation, so
holy.
syncopation in
Yeah.
rap
But think
and
about it. Holy is also WHOLLY, right? It can be holy or holy, but you want something to be whole, right? And what the devil is constantly trying to do is to fracture things, like whether it's to fracture
well,
the family,
wholesome is certainly yeah.
yeah. Well, I
Um,
now think of these two terms not unlike each other. When I think of holy and I think of holy,
well, the reason, yes,
I
and
think that that
this is correct
you want
because
the family unit to be together. You want the church to be together. Even if you think about Protestantism, what is it? It's the constant breaking down. Okay, well, this was the church. Now we're this, and then they break from them, and then they break from them, and then it's just
heresy.
constantly
Well,
being
well, the
fractured.
greatest sin you can commit aside from suicide, perhaps, is schism,
Hmm.
to break.
Right.
Um, the the way that I think about it, which I think is this, I think we're saying the same thing, is the natural law that underpins our religious injunctions is everything is that things are correct when everything is performing the function for which it was intended, everything in its right place, and so when things are lifted out from or broken apart from their natural habitat and their natural function, they set off chain reactions of things going wrong. For homosexuality being an example, but also there's all kinds of ways in which the Christians will say, let one sin and the others will follow. And they're describing the runaway effects of breaking a bit off. And that's exactly what happens to gay personalities in a psychiatric sense.
Mm.
And it's what happens to families. If the government can do it, they'll do it. Some of the sickest and most depraved things that the government does are things that most viewers of your program probably won't know about, and people like us will never encounter directly in our lives. The ways in which the government treats people when they are down on their luck and trying to rebuild some semblance of a family unit,
Mm.
the penalties, the financial penalties, and the threat of homelessness that is dangled over the heads of single mothers should they make the mistake of getting a boyfriend, who could be a dad to their child, who could be a husband for them, who could, who knows? But obviously, some kids, whatever. But uh, they're seeking something more wholesome, more coherent, more
Mm.
closer to and the state. There's so many people in this situation where if you're a single mom and you have a kid, you're going to lose if there's suddenly a live-in man, like you have a boyfriend around too much, you could lose your social housing and you could lose some or part of your welfare. Like the perverse incentives that the system has set up
Mm.
for the only possible reason is to keep those people exactly where they are.
Exactly, to enslave people. The Great Society Act, yeah,
Exactly where they
which
are.
is exactly what it was. They mainstreamed welfarism by saying to
Right.
women, "Hey, like it's a negative incentive, but don't marry the father." Don't. They actually used to send people around to
Mhm.
examine the homes to make sure there was no man living there,
It's
to make
it
sure that there
still
was a single
happens. It
woman.
still happens.
Wow.
It still happens. Not I've acquired through my former marriage some not marriage, from my former relationship, some cousins in Philly who live, much closer to that kind of life than I do, and it still happens. And people live in fear of improving their lot, of making wholesome, good choices designed to make their lives and their kids' lives healthier, wealthier, happier, more successful, because they're afraid that they're afraid that they won't be able to survive in the gap that the savagery of the welfare system creates.
Mhm.
And it's all on purpose, and it's all designed to keep them exactly where they are. Single mom with a kid at home. A kid, therefore, is being raised by harridans, termagants, and witches at school, and the mom is just too wrapped up in keeping the plate spinning to be able to think too much about what their child will be, with what their aspirations might look like, or where the family will be in 10 years.
Mm.
She's exhausted, and she still doesn't make all the bill payments every month, and the kid is slowly being raised by these demons in schools with pink hair and pride flags,
Yeah.
told if they're a little bit froofy, a little bit how do you do, a little bit light in the loafers, sugar in the tank, as we say in Philly, that they're not gay, from which there is a possibility of recovery, but they need to have their penis chopped off. And mom is so tired and addicted to her prescription medication and so exhausted and confused and unhappy, miserable, and just demoralized and deflated that she goes along with it, and even maybe finds some comfort in it because she didn't want to be the woman on the block with a gay kid. Um, and that is a deliberate construction of the people that we're talking about, the people behind, the Anderson Coopers and the Don Lemons and uh, the Witches of the View, now gratefully cancelled. It's cancelled. Just say it's cancelled. If I ever see a TV guide, I'll just. So my maid has been told anything that comes in a windowed envelope to just throw it away. I started doing this 10 years ago, and nothing bad happened, so I just kept doing it. It's brilliant. If you like really really owe somebody money, you find out about it eventually.
That's true.
Yeah. So I have all these kind of silly rules that just keep me amused. So I'm going to have I'll have the View cut out the TV guide downstairs. It doesn't exist. It's gone. It's gone. It doesn't exist. I don't see it. But no, these terrible situations that so many people are in that have been architected by instruments of the Prince of the Power of the Air. So, it's tough to look at America and not think that we are at that precipitous crisis, at that moment of collapse that other empires have
We are.
experienced. 10 years ago, Douglas Murray, who used to be so much more interesting than he is now, unfortunately, said, we're going to be squabbling over transgender pronouns when the mullahs nuke us. What he was getting at was this sort of decadent preoccupation with things we shouldn't even be discussing, let alone figure out what the right answer is. While we lose sight of self-preservation and sanity and sense and everything else, it's very difficult to look out and not just say, you know what, I'm going to go to church and make sure I'm good with God and stay away from everybody.
Right.
I've struggled with that because I had as most people know, I had a little hiccup in 2017 where I was found myself on national television apologizing for being raped. Um,
Yeah, we should talk about that. That because
maybe
that
not, maybe not. But
we don't need to get into the big
that
subject,
is
but
just. But the
yeah,
point being, I had some time to think.
yeah.
And it's been very hard for me to motivate myself to do anything in the public eye. Now, I have a new career now, which I like a lot more, and I am much more content than ever I was before. But of course, from time to time, people will say, "Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that?" It's been very difficult to motivate myself to get excited about any ideas, and been big money on the table at times for me to do a show or something. I'm just like, what's the point? I mean, Jesus is coming back in like 20 minutes.
Jumping in here to tell you guys about American financing. If you've been living on credit cards just to cover groceries, gas, and bills, you know those interest rates are brutal. Why keep paying 20% or more to the banks when you could call my friends over at American Financing? They have mortgage rates that are in the fives right now, and they are showing people every day how to keep more of their hard earned money in their pocket and out of the hands of credit card companies. Right now, American Financing is helping homeowners save an average of $800 a month by using their home equity to wipe out high interest debt with no upfront fees, no obligation, and just a 10-minute call to a salary based mortgage consultant. And here's the kicker: if you start today, you could delay 2 mortgage payments, putting even more cash in your hands right away. So don't wait. Call American Financing now. The number is 800-795-1210. Again, that's 800-795-1210. Or simply visit americanfinancing.net/Owens. Again, americanfinancing.net/Owens. Also want to tell you guys about Home Title Lock, because if you're a homeowner, you need to listen to this. When was the last time that you checked on your home title? The problem is, in today's AI and cyber world, scammers are stealing home titles and your equity is the target. Here's how it works. Criminals forge your signature on just one document. They use a fake notary stamp. They pay a small fee with your county, and that's it. Your home title has been transferred out of your name. Then they can take out loans using your equity or even selling your property, and you won't know that anything has happened until you get a collection or a foreclosure notice. So I'll ask again, when is the last time that you checked on your home title? If your answer is never, you need to do something about it right now. I've partnered with Home Title Lock so you can find out today if you're already a victim. Use my promo code Candace at HometitleLock.com and you'll get a free title history report and a free trial of their $1 million triple lock protection. This protection will ensure 24/7 monitoring of your title. It will send urgent alerts if there's any changes that are made. And if fraud happens, they'll spend up to $1 million to fix it for you. So head to HometitleLock.com and use code Candace. Again, that's HometitleLock.com, promo code Candace. But do you find, I think that if you're good at writing and you're good at speaking and you understand the world the way that you understand it and the problems that are, and to have experienced a lot of what you've experienced. I mean, I'm not trying to get you to speak about your sexual abuse, but I'm just saying that, like, to have lived that, and to have then lived a life of homosexuality, and then to say, okay, I woke up one day and I realized that I wanted to get into heaven. Do you not think it's just as important? Because, like you said, you
Oh,
were
so like I
married to a
haven't suffered
man.
enough. I also have a moral responsibility for the
Well,
next
but
50 years to help other
but
people.
don't you
That's
feel?
exactly my worry
But
because
don't you feel that, like, if you, like you said, I deeply regret that I'm married and I'm representing this
she's clever.
homosexual lifestyle.
She's clever. She remembered this.
Yeah, well, you said that you
You're
regret
so
it.
wily. You're
But
so
then
wily.
why wouldn't you want to do the opposite and speak about these
You're so
things
tricky.
and just be honest about everything that you've lived through and what you've
Well,
done, so that people can learn from you? Because if I get onto a platform and I say, homosexuality, you'll start living a life of sin. It may not have, if you're a person who's dealing with homosexuality, or you're a person who's in school and someone's telling you you are a homosexual and maybe you don't feel like you are a homosexual, they may need to hear it from somebody else who's lived that
I will
life.
say this. I have I've lived a life of immense privilege, unearned genetic advantage. I've had everything very easy, and there've been a few things that have happened to me in my life that have been genuinely terrible,
Hmm.
and that most people probably wouldn't have dealt with like I did. And maybe it's because I didn't have anything else to worry about, or maybe I just built resilient. But finding somebody for the first time in 35 years that you think is the first person in your life that loves you back, and that you finally don't feel so alone, and thinking, well, I might be this, but at least I'm kind of whatever, and then having to give that person up because you realize you're living a life that's simply not acceptable to God, and see what it does to that person's life and what it does to your life. That was the worst thing that I've ever done to another person.
Leaving leaving you.
The worst thing that's ever happened
Yeah.
to me, and the worst thing I've ever done to another person. And the worst thing about it was he knew already, because of course you do. When you care about somebody, you can see things happening.
Like it was messing with you spiritually.
Uh,
He could sense that.
he knew that I wasn't in the room anymore. I wasn't present in the room anymore, and that I was having some kind of crisis. about that part of my life. And he knew already, and he'd already come to terms with it, and he'd done his grieving for the relationship. So I'm there like, I've just ruined this person's life, and they're being really nice to me and asking me if I'm okay, because I'm not. Uh, and so that was horrible. And the priest thing, I said I shouldn't say it again and get canceled for another 10 years, but I will. Um, in common with a lot of people that this happens to, I didn't perceive it as being as bad at the time as the effect I now realize it had on me, right? It wasn't a violent, brutal situation, right? And I didn't know until after I got canceled, thanks. When I had that time
That
to
you
to
had started
to
loving your victim, not loving your
well,
oppressor. I mean, like,
I didn't realize that it was responsible for so much of me that was wrong, right? And what it had done to me. I thought I kind of got away with it. I even sort of thought, well, kind of think I was sort of the sexual aggressor in that situation. I didn't realize what it had what it had left me with.
mm,
To have that, and then the husband, and then I have a lot of health problems now too. I'm going blind, and God knows what else. Uh, I joke with my spiritual director that when I get to heaven, I'm going to march up to our Lord and say, "I want an apology. Say you're sorry." And he says, "Our Lord will outstretch his hands, and you will see his stigmata, and you will feel profoundly ashamed for the fraction of a second before you plunge down into the lake of fire. Don't do that when you get to heaven." I'm just
mm,
kidding. But I have felt like that sometimes. I
mm,
have had that difficult relationship where I'm like, "Haven't you done enough? Like, are we not good? Like, enough?" And I've said to a few people recently, which always upsets them, but I mean it. It's like, I'm ready to be with Jesus. Like, I'm tired. Like,
mhm,
I'm good. But I have a feeling, and there's a reason for this, which is a horrible, gruesome reason that you won't want to hear, but I'm going to tell you anyway. That unfortunately, I think he has plans for me to be here for many decades yet, doing something along the lines you suggest. Um, when all gay sex is a humiliation, is an exercise in humiliation
mm,
and in self harm. In my case, it was particularly so. Wanting to be physically subjugated by a much stronger, larger man, and I
mm,
settled on African American men as being the uh, sort of athletic, hypermasculine thing that was doing it for me. And in the course of over 20 years, I guess it would be 20 years of being an active homosexual. I mean, I had a lot of sex, and a lot of unprotected sex with a lot of people from a group where half of all of them get AIDS.
mm,
50% of gay black men get HIV. And I've done the math. And it um, breaks every law of maths, physics, biology, and chemistry that I don't have HIV. It is mathematically impossible that I don't have it, but I don't.
mm.
And uh, that is a God thing.
Yeah.
That is a God thing,
Mm,
because it would have been an easy way out.
right.
I would, oh yeah, yeah, fine, sure. You're going to spread that misery around to others, be a participant uh, in their sin as well. Because you're two people doing it to each other at the same time as you're doing it to yourself. And then you're going to make it okay to be a gay Republican, which is really bad, Milo. And then you're just gonna get to that. No, no, you got 5 long decades of making it. So I know, I know,
Yeah.
I know. I'm dragging my feet at the moment because I'm enjoying this kind of interregnum fiction of being retired, when in actual fact, who I work for, and I'm like working like a dog all day every day.
Yeah.
But I enjoy I always like to make it look easy, so I always try to have an air of studied nonchalance. So I try to I like to have this I have this sort of thing I like. Oh no, I'm retired. I'm retired. I'm retired. Sorry, you don't deserve me. I'm retired.
Yeah.
But I know that at some point it will have to happen.
Yeah. I think so. I mean, I would
But
definitely.
like Augustine, not yet.
Yeah. Well, you'll know. I think you'll know when the moment comes. I think God puts people in their path for a reason,
Mhm.
and I think you've lived through a
Right
lot.
now, I know he wants me to do what I'm doing now because
Mhm.
the person I'm working for needs me in certain ways. I know that I have to finish that task.
Mhm.
But after that, it'll be time to return to my duties.
Yeah, exactly. I think so. And next time I think you're gonna be completely sober in a few years. Sober from
Oh well, I'll never
everything.
be that.
No, come on, the English can get sober.
I'm British.
Yeah.
Look, it's that would be like saying go to a therapist. It's ridiculous.
Mm,
What we do instead is we bury it, we bury it, we bury it, we drink, and we
mm.
invade Ghana. No, there will never be a day when I don't. I'm getting better. I will say this: like Adderall got me off cocaine. Um, I continually take steps in good, positive, healthy directions. I found myself being irritated with the fact that uh, a medication I was on was getting in the way of my prayer life, and I was like, "Oh my god, who am I? Who have I become?" It's just because I was like stumbling over my words, and I was like, "This is annoying." Oh god, pick the narcotics or the Blessed Mother, Milo. Who are you? So I have confronted with those kinds of things now, and normally don't disappoint myself. Uh, but you will prize a Pinot Grigio out of my cold, dead hands, girl. It is part of our holiest ceremony.
Mm.
Wine is the substance that our Lord has chosen to manifest in. It is drinking is Catholic. Catholics drink. That's all there is to it. I have never trusted teetotal people. I regard anybody who doesn't drink with extreme suspicion and contempt, honestly, to be honest with you, which is really everyone in America. But nobody drinks anymore. I was very reassured to hear that you had a glass of wine under social pressure, which means that you are not one of those people.
I did have a glass of wine or social pressure.
You did. But a one solitary glass of wine your whole life is not going to do too much damage, especially. But that's reassuring because it means you're not one of the bad guys. But there are people who would have said no.
Honestly, now I probably would say no. It's just part of being a
Well,
mom. You got to be up so
now
early.
you've got an excuse. You've got
Yeah,
babies.
exactly.
I have to be up early with the cats, but I am still going to drink myself to sleep. No, look, I'm not going to say that I have like the perfect, clean and pious life. I don't, but I will say, um, within very narrow limits, I do like a drink, or whatever, and to some extent, it is I'm not making excuses for this is classic sinner move about to happen here. Well, really, it's because it stops me doing this worst thing, but it does. The fact having a couple of glasses of wine and go to sleep instead of being up all night like I would have been before,
Mm.
and 3 a.m. when 3 a.m. is the witching hour for your libido.
Mm.
Instead, having drifted off nicely after a whiskey with a cat in my arm and a
Okay.
book on my lap, that for me is a way better way to end the day than spending 6 hours tossing and turning wrestling with the semen demon. Sorry. So I have to call him that because I found that the most effective way to leave things behind was to make them ridiculous,
Mm.
so that it was like sort of preposterous that I can't even imagine myself doing it. Like sex with black people? Are you crazy? Like I like tried to make it into a joke,
Right.
and now I kind of like laugh when I hear it, so it sort of feels like it was somebody else. So I just turned everything into sort of I turned everything into an absurdity that is absurd, that is disordered. So that was helpful for me because it's difficult to stay horny when you're laughing. Although the British and anyway, I think I have maybe a prematurely geriatric life and routine from which I will emerge one day. But right now, while I'm staying on the straight and narrow, not falling off the wagon as far as the gay stuff goes, and continuing to put in a good day's work for our friend and getting better with my spiritual life all the time. I mean, I learned Latin for goodness sake.
That's fantastic.
Drug addicts don't learn Latin in their spare time. But I got a tutor for 3 years, and now I can translate the Gospels and I understand the liturgies.
That's
It's
amazing.
It is amazing.
That is truly amazing.
It is amazing. It is
Mm.
amazing. It's the best thing I ever did in my whole life.
Mm.
It is amazing. Uh, uh, that kind of stuff, I think, is really important to me to have like a decade off. Look, I'm a self-indulgent, lazy piece of what. And I have the personality I have, gay or straight, but I'm self-indulgent. But I have tried to use the self-indulgent time somewhat wisely, and I think I have. When I come back, I'm going to be deadly. But for
Well, Milo, no one's ever doubted that you're brilliant, and so what you'll fill your time
no,
with.
it's very it's exhausting. It's suffocating. I've always wanted to be more oblivious. I wanted to go through life, like a woman or an ethnic minority, just sort of enjoying the sort of drift. But always been sort of hyper aware and sort of just meandering through life. You don't have that, but just sort of, I don't know. I can't remember if I parked on the third or the fourth floor. I would love not to remember
Yep.
details. I would love not
Mm,
to notice things. I would love not to like draw connections. I'd love it if I didn't know when people close to me were lying to me, and I always do,
mhm.
because I have this pattern matching brain that notices everything they're doing. And I'm like, oh, why are you lying to me? Maybe there's a good reason, but it makes me sad every time. And I would love to take all those dials down. You know, it's a great curse to be witty, brilliant, handsome, popular, and successful. Um, there's a there's a great line in the David Brooks book or something about how Disney punishes athletic kids because it tells these ugly duckling failings to which they cannot possibly relate. And sort of it's the popular athletic kids at school who are the real victims because they don't have any stories that tell that speak to their lives. It's all about it's all about losers and also rans. And also, where's the kids book for the cheerleader? Where's the kids book for the quarterback? I like to say, I've lived a life of extraordinary ease and privilege, but I've never allowed that to stand in my way. No, I think I know when I have conversations with people like you who are insightful and have integrity and gently in that lovely way remind me I've got lots left to do.
And I'm in such mom mode. I'm always momming
No, but
everyone,
I
but
need that
that's
because I
kind of
didn't have
like,
I didn't have a
yeah,
nice
you
mom.
just gotta again,
I had a cocaine addict. So
yeah,
I didn't have a mother.
because you can do better. That's it. It's like, if you we all can do better. So let me not
I
make
had
it
a
seem like I'm
reality show at
excusing
home.
myself from that, but you're brilliant, and I obviously a lot of my political philosophy or the beginning of my political philosophy really began with reading you when you were on Breitbart, and I know you have a lot to contribute. And
There's a lot of pressure,
I got to read the political side, but you've lived through a lot.
I
Being
feel
a sex abuse victim,
I
someone who
feel like
lived.
Lauryn Hill. I
Yeah,
can't do a second album after this much pressure.
I know, I know. But
Like,
I do think your voice is missing. I think there's a lot of people that could.
I will tell you this. A decade of imitators, and really nobody comes close. It's been very sad, very tragic to watch. You've blossomed remarkably and beautifully into somebody very formidable. And a couple of other people but other than that,
It's been
it's
really
quite a sorry field, isn't it?
uninspired.
Yeah.
It's starting to look like our architecture.
Yeah. No, but no, it's flimsy.
It's
It's
very
peeling.
flimsy.
No, I mean
It's getting
you
really
look at
it's really basic out there.
the standard. I mean, the standard of discourse
It's
on the
just not they're
conservative
not
right.
interesting at all.
It's 20 IQ points lower even than it was in 2015.
It's so basic.
We were smart in
It's like a
2015.
starter pack.
We were funny. We were smart, and now you have
Interesting.
yeah,
It's
and now you have like three clans, and one of them just says Jew, Jew, Jew all day, and one of them says this, and one of them says that. It's so intolerably dull.
Boring. It's
Not one
very
of them has
boring.
ever been to an art gallery. Not
Mm,
one of them has
mhm,
ever read a real book.
mhm.
I mean, I will eat this mic if if it emerges that Nick Fuentes has ever read any book cover to cover. Like these people don't know anything,
Mm.
and it's so it does
Well, I
frustrate
think
me.
part of it is that even if the people, maybe at some point people were reading books, and then I think the problem is once you have a platform,
Well, they were reading mine, and then I retired, so
and
that's
then-
it's my fault.
once you have a platform and you're in that feedback loop, and people are like, "You're amazing, you're great." Maybe people stop learning.
Also,
They
I did
become less interested. I think that they've arrived at the end, the conclusion. And if you're
another
not
thing I
learning,
did
you're
is
dying.
I did write a lot of bad books for other people,
Mm.
which has contributed to the general collapse in standards. Because I've been ghostwriting in those 10 years, and uh, the kinds of people you're ghostwriting for, they're not intellectuals,
Mm.
and so I think I've really it's all my fault, isn't it?
Mm. Yeah.
I made it dumb, fake, and gay.
Yeah. I think that is
Sorry,
actually
America.
a perfect place to end it.
Yeah, thank you.
It's all Milo's fault. He has made everything dumb
I have given
and
America
fake
my
and
gay.
gay.
Yep.
And this is the problem that we find ourselves in American society. Everything is dumb, fake, and gay because of Milo Yiannopoulos.
I'm so
And
sorry.
it could have been better.
I'm
I'm
so
sorry,
sorry.
you guys.
Sorry.
Bye
I'm
bye.
going to buy a castle in Hungary and wish you the best.
Milo, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, my
We're
darling.
definitely going to have you back.
Thank you, love.